Hey everybody, Nick Espinoza, your chief security fanatic here, and today you can say goodbye to password changes. And I got a lot of thoughts on this one, but I want to give you the nuts and bolts. And interestingly enough, this is coming from PC Gamer's Andy Edzer, I used to have a PC Gamer subscription, man, back in the day when we actually got paper magazines. That's how old I am. But let's dive in, because NIST, or the National Institute of Standards and Technologies, has released the latest guidelines in their digital identity guidelines. This is something I've also been reading through as well. And as Andy puts it, it's incredibly dry wording. And if you've ever read a NIST document, it absolutely is. And I've read a ton of them. Basically, there is a rule barring the requirement that users periodically change their passwords. And as a result, we could finally see our passwords lasting longer for a variety of services, giving us plenty, of headspace to remember important other things, right? But the logic behind this, and this is where I think it's actually interesting, because I actually disagree with NIST somewhat on this. But the logic that NIST has is essentially this: if users are forced to change complicated passwords frequently, they're going to have a tendency to create simpler and simpler versions and make them easy to remember. Now, here's the problem with this. And the big issue that I have here is the fact that we have an absolute metric ton of stolen usernames and passwords floating around in the internet. Some of them are complex, some of them are easy, but oftentimes they are stored insecurely by the provider that we are giving our username and password to, or creating an account with. So whether your password is amazing or your password is password, oftentimes it can get hit. Facebook was literally just fined for storing hundreds of millions of passwords, good or bad, in plain text in their back end. I literally just did a video and podcast on that, and radio segment on that a short while ago. And so understand that as we are creatures of habit, we're going to use one password for flipping everything. And odds are people aren't going to create one complex password and just use it for everything. It's probably going to be simpler. That's just human nature. The other side of it is, even if it is complex or simple, assuming you're using that on the 10 websites you go to or apps you go to all the time, one of them gets breached and they're insecurely storing that password. You don't know it, and you think, well, it's a super awesome password, so my 9 other places are secure, when the answer is no. We can basically glean that from the dark web and run what's called a password spraying attack, where we're trying all the same username and password combinations constantly. That's why every single website that I have has a different password. There are no two websites that I've got that have a similar password. I also separate my business accounts from personal accounts, logging into things like, Netflix or whatever, using personal accounts, not corporate email. That's the other problem, is that we have a tendency on the corporate side, especially if we're working like 40, 60 hours, whatever. Well, I'm just going to use my business email for absolutely everything. And by virtue of that, it's just easier, because it's all going to come to one mailbox. I've been working here for 20 years or whatever. No big deal. And that's a huge issue too, because odds are the password you used for Facebook that was in plain text, it could be the same one that you're using for business, and you're never changing that password now. So I think this is ultimately a good step, in the sense that we are moving towards things like passwordless authentication and other more advanced techniques that make it much harder to get into accounts. But a lot of legacy and traditional sites out there, even the Facebooks of the world, simply allow you to have a single factor of authentication, username and password. And if you're never changing that thing and they've got a breach, good luck, because that's the issue here. And please like, share, follow me here on Facebook and Twitter at NickAESP, where hopefully you have unique passwords. Same with YouTube as well, where you should subscribe. And as always, stay safe, stay online, and please attempt to stay private. Thanks, everybody.